let me just quickly introduce myself. We have an incredible webinar planned for you today. It's been some time since we've actually done, since our last webinar, I think 2 weeks. So dusting off the old webinar equipment. Let me quickly introduce myself. Mark Paley, thank you for joining. I'm the VP of Sales here at Cardknox, the leading omni-channel payment gateway. We provide businesses in a wide variety of industries with advanced payment processing technology to securely process payments in store and online. Okay, so for those of you following along at home, I can actually read and write English for my ability to read the script. I'll just start off with a quick joke. I always like to start off with something particularly related to the topic at hand. So there were two people who were stranded on a desert island, and it was pretty bad. They were literally in the middle of nowhere, and it was just bad news. They didn't know when salvation was going to come, who was going to find them, how are they going to be found. One of them is sitting there bemoaning his fate. Woe is me, how am I going to get off this desert island? And the second one was sitting there laughing hysterically, saying, this is great. And so the one who's so frustrated says to the one who's laughing hysterically, like, dude, what are you so excited about? How do you know you're going to get off how do you know you're going to get off this island? Guy's like, dude, I have a credit card bill. I didn't pay my credit card bill, man. Don't find me. Anyway, all right. That was my best shot at a joke. Yeshua, just before we introduce our very special guest, who we really do appreciate him taking the time. Yeshua, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Yeshua Kaplan. I am the Director of Technical Services for Cardknox, for our parent company, Fidelity. I head up the support teams that assist our developers integrating with Cardknox, our partners, as well as end users that use our products and tools.
Got it. So you're very technical, and like James and I already confirmed, most of the attendees are probably likely not here for you, but they're probably more likely here for me or for James. Right? Is that
probably right? That's kind of been my experience throughout.
Which is actually a mistake, since neither one of us has the information that you have. So we got everybody here for you so they can actually learn something useful,
That's right. We know enough to be dangerous, but
right.
We definitely need someone with technical background and expertise. And now, without further ado, after my dumb joke and my attempt at demeaning Yeshua, story of my life, it's a pleasure to be joined today by someone who really does not need an introduction, definitely in the payment industry and outside that, James Shepard. He's otherwise known as the CC Sales Pro. CC standing for chocolate, or credit card, Sales Pro.
Like that.
James is known for his expertise in training ISOs and agents and how to successfully sell merchant services. I will say also, James, just before I give you the floor, I just want to say that we have about 200 or 250 or so active outside agents as part of our sister company, Fidelity Payment Services. And I just want to tell you, they worship you, they adore you, they use your platform, and they really enjoy everything that you have to offer. So without further ado, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate it. And that's why I do what I do. So, I got into this business about 12 years ago. And, I came from a real strong sales background, sales trainer for ServiceMaster out in the Chicago area. And then I moved to Pennsylvania. And I'm like, what am I going to do in Pennsylvania? There's nothing here. So I'm out in the sticks. And so I moved out here and decided I want to start a business and get out of the corporate side of it. And so I found credit card processing. And I think, like many agents that would be watching or listening right now, I thought to myself, I'll do this merchant services thing for a little while until I find a real job or I start a real business. That was kind of the idea. Little did I realize how great of an opportunity it was. And so I had a local ISO. I went out door to door and just sold merchant accounts, sold hundreds of merchants locally. And then about 2 years in, I started an ISO where we started going more nationally. But one of the things I figured out really early is that I really struggled to find the information. I was like, okay, I know how to sell. I just don't understand this crazy industry. And so I was like, boy, it was really difficult to, you know, find all the information and like, how do I sell this and what are the tips and tricks? And so I thought to myself, you know, if I'm searching for all this information, I would imagine other people are as well. And that's really the reason I started ccsalespro.com and our YouTube channel and later LinkedIn and all the other things, was really just to help people get past the learning curve a lot faster. And so I built up an ISO. We were doing about 200 deals a month 5 years ago, and decided that that's not what I wanted to do. And so I sold it back to the acquiring bank and decided to put all the money back into training and technology. So for the last 5 years, my full-time focus has been consulting large ISOs, you know, selling our technology. We have our statement analysis company, ISO AMP, and then of course the training, doing custom training, and really I spend a lot of time doing this, you know, getting content out there and just really trying to help people in the industry. And my philosophy all along has been, let me help as many people as I can for free, and then I'll figure out how to make money from that. And that strategy's worked out pretty good for me so far.
James, so just a couple of things. So first of all, just some of our listeners and some of the future listeners, especially as we post it on YouTube, we typically get several thousand views from these webinars, and some of them may have industry background and some of them may not. So just to translate the ISO and just to really so people can fully understand the gravity of what you've done and the experience. ISO stands for Independent Sales Organization, which is basically an arm of a payment processor, and it's really impressive that you've been able to build up and ultimately sell such an impressive organization. You know, just one of the things that you mentioned, myself, I'm coming from the insurance and financial services industry, you know, way back when in a previous life, and I will tell you, you know, it's very heavily regulated. Bernie Madoff notwithstanding, but you know, I mean, listen, no, listen, when I entered the industry, I mean, FINRA, the SEC, these guys fingerprinted the heck out of me. They wanted to know you know, every little, you know, every time I bought a Slurpee at 7-Eleven. Answer was 0, but I mean, they literally wanted to know every detail of my life. And I will tell you, the content that's available in that industry is quite is really quite wide. With that said, in the payment industry, the first thing I said when I started here was, God, this is like the wild, wild west. And it's experts like yourself that really provide so much value and context, and really help the industry, you know, go to the next level. So we're going to be talking today about contactless, which, believe it or not, is actually something that's a very hot button item since COVID-19. I'm assuming I don't have to translate what COVID-19 is, but we've all been living the COVID-19 pandemic since some point in March, some of us earlier, some of us later. And since contactless payments are entirely touch-free, customers are increasingly preferring this method as a means of reducing the spread of germs, right? That real, you know, germ being the new 4-letter word. Okay, so now I can go back to using my other 4-letter words. You know, MasterCard reported a 40% jump in contactless payment use during the first quarter of 2020. And here at Cardknox, we've observed a 150% increase in contactless payment use between November of last year and April of this year. Obviously, you know, a lot of it due to COVID-19. We were actually picked up. We did a press release and it was actually picked up, I think, yesterday. Just because of the fact that, you know, the numbers, 150% increase, is so impactful and exciting. So today's webinar is going to focus on the recent surge in contactless payment use and what the benefits are for merchants who accept this payment method from customers. Again, just to clarify, the product experts, it's going to be James and Yeshua. I'm just here for my pretty face. Most of you will diverge on how pretty it really is, but that's another topic. And Yeshua is going to be filling us in on how contactless payments are such an important selling tool for ISVs. Just to translate, ISVs, independent software vendors, basically those who are providing software to their merchants, as well as sales agents, which, James, you've worked so heavily with, and what you can do to sell most effectively, which is James' middle name. And to finish off, Yeshua will discuss the security benefits of contactless payments. Throughout this webinar, as some of you have already started to do, and some of you will continue to do, feel free to post any questions you have in the chat box, and we'll make time to answer them at the end. I always like to say there's no such thing as a stupid question, except for the ones I ask. So ask away. And with that, Yeshua, please take it away.
Okay, so actually, while we certainly have seen a jump in contactless payments since COVID-19 came around, this is obviously not a trend that has been, occurring before that. If you just initially contactless payments came around, you think about the old process of processing a credit card. You came to the counter, you handed over your credit card to a cashier. The cashier took your card, did a swipe, gave it back to you. It was very frictionless until EMV came around. EMV came around with this kind of more cumbersome process where you have to do it yourself and you have to, find the slot in the machine, put it into the machine. It takes some time, depending on the
Sure.
technology.
Just to add clarity, so EMV was those chip cards, right? When the world went, or at least here in the U.S., we went from swipe to dip, right?
Correct. Yeah. So then now you have to dip it in. Depending on the technology, you may have to leave your card there until the transaction finishes. Then you get your card back. It introduced kind of some friction to that process. Contactless is a way to maybe to go back to that simplicity in some ways, making it even easier than it used to be, and retain the benefits, the security benefits that EMV provided in the card present transaction. The way it works is there's really two ways. There's two kinds of contactless payments. They work very similar, but so one would be using a mobile wallet. You have Apple Pay, you have Google Pay, some other mobile wallet that allows you to take out your phone, bring your phone close to a terminal, and pay that way. The other way would be cards themselves that have a wireless chip embedded or a radio chip embedded, and allows you to make a payment that way, just bring the card itself closer to the terminal. Both, again, they use similar technologies. It's called NFC, near field communication. They're, in the sense, it's counterintuitive. People have security.
Sure, there's a little static on your line. I'm not sure if there's a cell phone nearby, but I'm not sure what you can do to help that. But
I'm getting an alert to that effect. I'm not sure what I can do about it though.
Okay, it might be the NSA. They say they're the only branch of government that actually listens to us. So I don't
Mark,
know.
you're the technical guy here. If you have just something I can do here, just let me know.
To be honest, usually the NSA is listening to me, not you. But hey, I guess they have.
I just think I just lost connection entirely. Did I?
No, you didn't. You're good. You're good.
Okay. So it's a funny thing that people have concerns with contactless, where they think that somehow it's easier for someone to copy since it goes over the airwaves. Till now you were actually inserting a card, you were swiping a card. Now people kind of are concerned, somebody can somehow intercept that radio communication because it's wireless and accept it, but that's really not the case. NFC is actually, contactless in general is actually much more secure than a swipe or even EMV, and we'll get into why. But just even at its basic, the NFC is called near field communication for a reason. By spec, it can't be read from further than 10 centimeters away, which is something like 3 inches. The optimal distance between the card and the phone and the reader is something like less than 4 centimeters. So that's really close. It's really hard to clone a card, to intercept that radio communication. There are a lot of other things built in that maybe we'll talk about a little later that actually make it more secure from the perspective if somebody does actually manage to get a hold of your credit card that you're using on your phone, or even if you or somehow they do clone that signal, or there's something in the terminal that gets them access to your card information, protect you in a lot of ways.
Yeshua, based on I know you're just about wrapping up. Based on the status, I'm assuming that someone didn't just steal one of your credit cards for NFC, but they probably stole your entire wallet, maybe mine too. So we're gonna come back to you, James. Do you want to talk just about the sales process and really, the benefits of contactless payments, and then we'll come back to Yeshua just about some of the security aspects.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's so interesting, and I actually really enjoyed that because I mean, it is so interesting when you think about these percentages that you mentioned early on, Mark, and the just the huge increases that we're seeing in contactless payment usage. And to your point, Yeshua, it's it's not like that started with COVID-19. That was before, but this has been the catalyst to really kind of take it over, over the top. The first thing I would say is our industry is an industry that's always looking for change, and what I mean by that is merchant sales professionals. We need stuff to change because going out there and selling the same thing in the same way to the same merchants, like they've been accepting cards for years, So you always want to have something a little bit different. And I find that, there's two strategies there. One strategy is a lot of salespeople try to kind of like manufacture something different. They go out there and my goal is I'm going to convince the merchant that what we offer is totally different than what everybody else offers. Well, it's probably not. And so that is very challenging. And so you have to find that little niche or what you're going to go after. And so what I find is a lot easier is to identify the next kind of wave of change that's already happening and just ride that wave. It's so much easier. EMV was like that. It was like, you don't have an EMV terminal, you need an EMV terminal. Simple, things are changing. And so, merchants have kind of come to accept this, that there's a lot of changes that happen in the payment processing industry. And so they recognize that and they know like, okay, things are changing, we have to move forward. So I think once you understand that, that allows you to see this huge opportunity because most small merchants are not currently, they may have a terminal that can do contactless, but they don't have it enabled. They've never used it. They have no idea how it works. They don't even know if they want it to work. So we're still in kind of the very early phases of this. And so it's a huge opportunity for you to get out and be able to talk to merchants, whether it's on the phone or in person as things open up, and to bring this up. So I actually wrote down, a little 4-step sales process. And so I'll kind of run through it. And, obviously I know we'll get to some Q&A, but glad to answer questions that you have. So the first tip I would give you in kind of step number 1, if you want to sell based on contactless, is you want to start with something familiar. Salespeople love to sell these things that are different in a way that makes merchants feel anxious and makes them feel like, oh, I don't know, like this is new. This is like unproven, you've got to be very careful. And so the way I like to approach contactless when I'm talking to a merchant is I want to talk to them about this idea of just accepting all forms of payment. That's it. It's nothing crazy going on here. For the last, however long you've been in business, 10 years, 20 years, there's always been this challenge where whether or not you believe in a certain form of payment doesn't really matter as a business owner. What matters is, what do consumers want to use? How do they want to get their money to you? And as a business owner, you always want to be on the cutting edge of that, because even if only 10% of your customers want to use a certain form of payment, but you don't offer that form of payment, that's a problem. And, when it comes to something like an American Express, there was this for a while before OptBlue, there was this legitimate argument. Well, it's more expensive. I don't want to accept Amex OptBlue because, or Amex because then it's more expensive. And that wasn't totally true because, they only do rewards cards. But when you go into contactless, it's such a no-brainer. It doesn't cost anything extra. We're not charging you an additional per item fee. We're not charging you an additional percentage fee. It's just you're taking the cards in a different way. And so, the great thing, Mr. Merchant, about contactless is that unlike other forms of payment that have come out in the past, this one, there's no extra ongoing cost to take contactless. It's just another form of payment that your customers are going to want to use now. And it's simple. We just have to enable this on your terminal. You're ready to go. So start with something familiar. Start with that basis of confirming with the merchant that they want to accept all forms of payment. I think at the end of that phase, it'd be great to ask a little question right there and get that confirmation. Something like, Susan, I'm sure you understand with everything going on right now that being able to accept all forms of payment that your customers want to use, especially when it doesn't cost you any more money, that's kind of a no-brainer. Wouldn't you agree? Get that agreement, get them to say, yeah, of course, So once we get to that, we'll go to step 2. So, now once they've said, yeah, I want to accept all forms of payment, now I think it's still, we're in this COVID-19 situation at the time of this recording. We're coming out of it hopefully here, but I think we still want to talk about it, but I think we want to talk about it, as you mentioned, Mark, with this idea of germs, the new 4-letter word. I like that. Let's talk about germs. be very careful. If you get too much into the weeds on COVID-19, you need to understand that that topic has become very political. It's become very divisive. People have very different opinions about, does it stay on surfaces and all, we don't want to get in. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about, your customers, regardless of your personal opinions or mine, your customers have become much more fearful and concerned about germs. And as a result, here are the statistics. And this is where you talk about, we've seen a 150% increase. MasterCard's reporting a 40% increase. This is where you talk about these stats where you show them, we're seeing a huge increase in consumers where for a long time, consumers like, I have Apple Pay, and I didn't really use it that much. I used it like, I want to see how it works. But COVID-19 and germs, it's like, I'm using Apple Pay, all of a sudden that catalyst of like, okay, it's really neat anyway. And I just needed a little bit of a shove to really start adopting it. And this is it. So it's like, cool. So consumers now are going to want to use that. And so as a business owner, a small business owner, you want to be sensitive to that concern. Again, you want to be careful. It's not about their concern. Maybe they're very concerned about germs. Maybe they're not at all concerned about it. That's okay. It doesn't matter. What matters is a large percentage of their customers have a concern about germs. And so we want to make sure we're addressing that with contactless payments, right? So kind of you're just driving your point home. You've got them to agree that you certainly want to accept any form of payment that a lot of customers want to use. Now we're driving that home with the situation with germs. Then we go to number 3, where we want to make it simple, not innovative. Okay. It's so funny. If you ever, a great book is The Innovator's Dilemma, but kind of this concept where innovation is always so exciting when it's in your own industry. I love innovations in the payments industry. I think it's so interesting. My merchants do not. My merchants think that innovations in pizza ovens are interesting, or innovations in, scheduling software for their hair salon is interesting, but they actually don't think payment processing innovations are interesting because that's not their business, it's mine, right? So when we start talking about things, and as salespeople, I know, because I'm the same way, like super passionate, we're talkers, and it's like, I've got to tell you about this contactless payments. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen. It's like a revolution, nothing's ever been seen like this before. It's amazing, You're actually not going to make sales like that, okay? Because to you, this excitement actually sounds kind of scary. The merchant's like, no, I think we're good. I'm not looking for the revolution. Come back in a year once it's proven for a year, and then we'll talk about it. I'm not looking to revolutionize that. I love to revolutionize, how to make pizzas faster, or, how to cut hair with half the payroll. But as far as contactless payments, I'm not looking for a revolution. So, resist that urge, and you want to make it very simple. Even the process of signing up, very simple. You want to make it clear to them that, hey, there's a new form of payment out. It's contactless. I'm sure you've heard of Apple Pay and Google Wallet and even contactless cards, as it was mentioned. Before all of this COVID-19 and everything, before all the concern about germs, it really was starting to gain momentum, but it was gaining momentum slowly. But this whole situation has just like turned on the turbo boosters. And so the good news is it's really easy. It's literally just something we have to set up on your terminal. There's no extra cost. I mean, there's nothing crazy at all. It's just something that we need to do and we need to take care of. And so I just want to make sure that you are set up. So are you currently set up right now? Can I use my Apple Pay on your device right now? I don't know. All of a sudden the merchant realizes, okay, so this is simple. This is something that's not a question mark. I need to have this set up. It's a no-brainer. We want to get them in that mindset. This is not the kind of thing where you want to be in an argument with the merchant. This is like, obviously you want to do this. Then it's, okay, can I do it right now? Pull out your phone. If you have an iPhone, Apple Pay. If you have a Android, Google Wallet or Samsung Pay, and pull it out and say, can I use this right now to pay for my meal? Well, I don't know. And now you talk about your solution and you go into step 4, which is your trial close, which is really simple. And that is, hey, if I can go ahead and get you set up with this without costing you any extra money and potentially even saving you a little bit, I'm sure that's something you'd want to learn more about, isn't it? And so now we're right into the phase where it's like they're there, they're interested, and now we can have that conversation with them. So that's kind of a basic sales process. I think obviously everybody's a little different, so you're going to experiment with it. But I think this is such a great opportunity, and it's something that you really, really want to take advantage of if you can.
James, that's incredible. And I always like to joke that I'm like a CNN reporter. I've got my executive producer in my ear. But one thing I'd like to do is really just have, in the show notes, on YouTube, these 4 steps that you highlighted. So just to really reiterate, you really said it, just so well. What a fantastic synopsis. So basically, starting with something familiar, basically diversifying your ability to accept payments.
Right.
So, just one more tool in your arsenal. Number 2, talk about germs, which is something that, everyone can relate to. Number 3, simple, not innovative. Hate to say this, payments are not cool, but we can be, okay, don't sue me for that. But simple, and, they don't want to know about cutting edge. I'll tell you one thing, James, just to explain it, the Apple model. If you look at Apple is so, I have earpods, or
right.
AirPods is my
AirPods.
And I will tell you, when I bought them, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to learn a whole new operating system, and I don't know how this is going to work. And oh my God, it was so scary. And I'll tell you the truth, in literally in minutes, I took them out of the box. I used them. It was so simple, so easy. So making it simple. And then, like you said, number 4, closing the sale with the trial close. I'd like to, James, that the way you broke it down was really incredible. We'd like to include those in the show notes, which I think everyone's going to be using. Before we end off, Yeshua is going to talk a little more about some of the unique security benefits of contactless payments, assuming our director of technical services does not have any more technical.
Why is it always the tech guy, right? Seriously, like every event I'm on, it's always like, the poor tech guy. It's like the one that can't get his mic.
The tech guy, don't be.
It's always the tech guy. It's always the tech guy.
Yeah, I just want to add something to what James was saying earlier. It's not just, people sometimes confuse them. They look at contactless meaning Apple Pay and Google Pay. It's really not just that. And this is an important piece because, as you said, there are many, many people. I'm a pretty technical guy. I don't use. In the past, I didn't use Apple. It took me a while to get used to Apple.
You're gonna have to sell. You sure you're gonna have to sell me on that? You being so technical, but I'll bite. Okay.
It's just a different. It's a change. It takes time for consumers to change their habits. People are used to taking out a card. More and more people are using Apple Pay, but now the banks are actually putting out these cards that have contactless chips enabled on the cards themselves. Once you try that once and you see, hey, I used the card just, I didn't have to do anything besides wave it past the terminal. You're going to try that every time, and you're going to be frustrated when it doesn't work.
Yep.
A phone is still a process. I have to take out my phone. I'm not used to using my phone for payments. A credit card, once I do it once, I'm hooked.
Right.
Sure. Just to piggyback on that, I like to say that my wife is my guinea pig. Usually we run. Yeah, don't go there.
Mark, 1 second. Let me hear that. Can you say?
I like to sometimes we'll run some marketing initiatives by her just as an outside consumer, just to see how she reacts to stuff. If it's simple and easy. But I will tell you, when she actually tried Apple Pay for the first time, she came home and she was like, "Oh my God, this thing's amazing." It was incredible, and just seeing how your average consumer relates to it is really a game changer. And James, like you said, if it's free, it's free. There's no additional cost to add on. And my statement that I always say is, if it's free, I take 2 or 3.
Yeah, and I think too, to your point about phone versus card. I think the interesting thing is, as a sales agent, I've actually found that the phone works a little better than the card as far as the demo thing of like, do you take payments? Because the merchants are very aware that you can make a payment using your phone. They don't know how it works, but they're aware of this. So it's really funny when I pull my iPhone out and I'm like, and I'll say I have Apple Pay. Can I buy something right now with my phone? And that's how I'll do it. And it's funny because the merchant almost always says, I don't know, or I don't think so. And then it's like, well, let me explain. And so it's a little easier that way.
The day Apple Pay came out, I wanted to try it. And I remember I went into a Walgreens and there was like a long line of people behind me, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna be like really cool and try it because they said it was Walgreens or something. I don't think it was Walgreens. And I remember I whipped out my phone, and the cashier looked at me and like, she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "No, don't worry about it. It's gonna work." And like I put it on there. Of course, it didn't work. I'm sitting there like an idiot. The line behind me looked like, "What were you thinking? Like, why did you think putting a phone next to the terminal is gonna
Right.
Well, like, which rock did this guy come out from under?
We've come a long way. Now really consumers do it.
Well, of course, it didn't help.
Sure,
It didn't
we
help.
do
that
still
early on,
wonder which rock you came out from under.
Once again, I'm going to say, if you were ever jealous of the tech people, don't be.
Well, I was going to say it didn't help Apple Pay much that right at the beginning they had that issue with the how far away you could be. It wasn't exactly 3 inches, and there was like maybe 10 reports of somebody who accidentally paid for the groceries of the person in front of them. You know? And then it was like, that was it. Everyone's like, I'm not using Apple Pay. Are you kidding me? And then it was like, it's so stupid. It happened like 10 times out of 300 million people, but it's like, that's what happens with Apple Pay. So I think they're still recovering.
And how many times was your credit card stolen just with a swipe, which is,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So before we hit Q&A, and James, I know there's already questions for you. Yeshua, was there anything else you wanted to cover specifically vis-a-vis radio waves, contactless cards, being equivalent to?
Just quickly, just briefly, because we're running a little bit late here, but I'll just say this.
I'm paid by the minute, so the longer this goes on, the happier I am. But
okay. Just before we mentioned briefly, and like you said, the radio waves are really by spec, and James just touched on this as well, that they shouldn't really, they're very hard to clone, they're very hard to intercept. There are a lot of benefits to using contactless, even if, say, the card was cloned. There's a lot of built-in security into it. A good example would be if you're using Apple Pay. If you lose your credit card, someone uses it, there's no verification process aside from the card itself. If you're using Apple Pay, you'll have to use either Face ID or Touch ID, or at the very least, put in a passcode into your phone. Someone finds your phone, they're not able to use that phone for payments without it. There's tokenization. When you use Apple Pay, and this is specific to a contactless. To contactless on a phone with a mobile wallet, such as Apple Pay or Google Pay, not with the cards themselves. You're not actually even giving them your real card number. Very often, if you look at your receipt after you did an Apple Pay transaction, the last 4 digits that's going to show on the receipt are not going to be the same 4 digits that you have on your credit card, because they're using what's called a token, which is just easily stands in for your credit card number. And if somehow there is a breach and someone gets a hold of that card, whether it's on the merchant end, whether it's somehow during the transaction process, your bank can just cancel that token, and you stay with your card. Your card doesn't get canceled. If for some reason your card doesn't need to be canceled, it's really super convenient in the sense that your phone just updates with the new credit card information. You don't even have to wait for the. I had this recently with a card of mine. I canceled the card because I saw some activity on there. Within minutes, my phone already had the new card information. I didn't even have to wait for a new card to come in. There are a lot of other small.
That's pretty neat. Essentially, your card can get hacked. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too, but you can still keep the card because essentially the card is reduced to a token.
Because you see the receipt and it's a different card number, but really what's happening is it's using tokenization.
You want to explain what tokenization is for all the unaffiliated like my mother?
Yeah, tokenization
In like 30 seconds. Go ahead and explain tokenization to us.
really quick, because tokenization is actually important when it comes to credit card processing as well. Yeah. From the gateway standpoint, Cardknox, with every transaction, you get what's called a token. They're using a similar concept. A token is something that stands in for the credit card number. In the case of Apple Pay, it looks exactly like a credit card number, but it's not really a credit card number. I'm going to suffice with that, Mark. You're not going to get any more than that.
I like to usually say that a token is like what you would use at an amusement park, trading real cash for a token for something that stands in its place, or converting a 15 or 16 digit card number into a 32 digit alphanumeric code. But
that's what we call an analog token. That's
right. So this would be a different, I understood, this would be a different token, but the concept of tokenization is really the same one. Like I said, I know enough to be dangerous. It looks like I'm pretty dangerous.
There are a lot of these, and again, like I said, it's counterintuitive. People think that contactless has to be less secure because it's contactless and because it's fancy and uses waves, radio waves. It's not. In reality, it's actually much more secure than payments have ever been.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to be moving into some questions. It looks like no one has any questions for me, but James, you're the most popular, and Yeshua, you're in second place. So James, do you want to start with these questions?
Sure. Well, we're really tied since I have no intention of answering the second question. So, because it's a little too techy for me. So, the first one is they're asking about, basically, okay, if we go through this process, we get them interested in contactless payments as a sales process. At the end, just because we got them interested in contactless, well, they can just call their current company and they can say, I need contactless payments. So, a couple things about that. I think, this is obviously where salesmanship comes into play. And that sales ability comes into play. But the main thing here is you want to do two things. Number one, you really want to be a little bit shocked that they're not already set up for payments. And I didn't really get that point across. So thanks for asking that question. When I go in and I'm like, I'm talking about contactless and they're like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. I'm like, awesome. So I can make a payment right now using my phone, right? And they're like, I don't think so. And I'm like, really? You're not already set up for contactless? No. Oh, wow. I can't believe your current company didn't already set you up for that. Excuse me. So, okay. So let me back up a second because this is really important. And actually, this is perfect because this will give us an opportunity to work together on something small and something easy. So here's what I'd like to do for you. And now you go in. So that transition is you're surprised that their current company hasn't already reached out to educate them about contactless. And so you're, without trashing the competition, you're basically trashing the competition, just, getting going around the corner a little bit by saying, oh, wow, they haven't set you up for, they didn't reach out to you already. They haven't trained you on how to do contactless. They didn't set your terminal up for that yet. So you're going through it that way to kind of show your shock and you're surprised they're not set up. Then it's like, well, that's good. I'm glad I'm here. This is a great opportunity for us to maybe work together on something small and maybe we can grow our relationship from there. So going with that same theme of credit card processing is simple. I don't want to make it complex or innovative. I'm just saying something small. So here's what let's do, Mr. Jones. I have a terminal. I can get you a free terminal. I can, sell you a terminal. Or I can rent a terminal, whatever you're doing with your terminals. I can get you a terminal and it's going to have your contactless payments set up. But here's the thing. I'm actually going to come back and I'm going to process a test transaction with this phone just to show you that it works, to give you that comfort level so that as your customers start coming in, we can put some little signs up. We can make sure that they know you accept contactless payments. And that's just really going to set their mind at ease with all the concern about the germs. So with that in mind, with your permission, let me get a little paperwork done so we can get this process rolling and I can take some notes down. How do you spell your last name? So now I'm going into the paperwork. So you want to be very assumptive. But yeah, the key is that you're surprised. The other way to approach it, of course, is you could add something else to it. So you could talk, maybe it's like, oh, you don't have contactless. Okay, well, I'm really glad I stopped by. I'd love to talk to you about our point of sale system that has contactless, right? This is a great, if you need a new point of sale system anyway, this is the perfect time because you need one that's enabled for contactless. Or maybe you're offering them savings, well, I'm so glad I stopped by because this is a great opportunity for us to talk about savings. It looks like, I'm guessing I have to look at your statement, but I would imagine I can save you money and set you up for contactless. So a big win-win for you. So you can also add some value in there as well with that approach. So, the second question I'm not even going to mess with. So I'll read it and then I'll let you answer this one. So we've all seen the videos of tech guys passing a relatively small device by a pocket or pocketbook and picking up the entire card number and then being able to make orders online with your credit card number. Is that not a concern? I actually haven't seen those videos, so maybe you have.
Yeah, I have. To be honest with you, they're not really representative. There's two parts to the answer here. They're not really very representative of the real world. Like I said, the wavelength here is that means someone's doing that and they're staging that. And yes, technically, if you know there's a credit card there, you have to be really, really close. If there's anything in between, the signal is going to be even less than that. And so it's a really difficult thing to do. Aside from that, and I touched on this and didn't go very into it, there are a lot of protections built in, even if somebody does get a hold of your card number. So for example, on a phone, it's not going to work because again, you need to verify via some sort of biometric, such as Face ID, Touch ID, or a passcode. So this is kind of two-factor authentication there, if you wish. Even if it's a card itself. So the card itself, and I don't want to bore anybody here, but with a standard credit card, if you get the credit card, the card number doesn't really change. So if I get your card number, I can go ahead and use that. I can use that for transactions maybe that I'm not authorized to make. With a contactless card, there's another piece of information that's dynamic that gets passed in. When you read it via contactless method, there's a one-time code that gets sent along with each one of those transactions. That transaction gets sent along to the bank. If you take somebody else's code and you take someone else's card and read it without actually sending the transaction to the bank, and then we're going to try to send in new transactions using that information, the bank is right away going to see that that's not in sync with the actual card. You took my card, I went and paid. Well, you tried to steal my card while I'm in line here, right? I went and made a transaction, and right now I sent a one-time code to the bank. Say the one-time code for simplicity is 0001. And then I went and made another transaction. Now I sent the bank 0002. And then you go and use my stolen card and you sent in 001 again. The bank's saying, okay, right away, we're going to cancel this. We're not going to let this transaction through. There are a lot of other similar protections that are built into this. So,
wow. Well, it seems to me that's still a lot safer than, you know, I mean, for that matter, somebody could very easily have their phone out and just take a picture of your actual card when you're inserting it. Like, you know, it's always possible to steal card information, but it seems to me it's a lot harder if it's like you have to walk within 3 inches of every single person in the store. And if you're lucky, one of them has a contactless card in their wallet. Like that seems a little bit, if I was a thief, I'd much rather just take pictures at the counter. You know,
just from the merchant perspective, merchants are covered with EMV transactions. So the cardholder generally is also covered. It means if someone steals your credit card,
right,
you're okay, the bank's going to cover that. If you're a merchant and you're processing EMV transaction, if you're not, you really should be, then you're covered from you have liability covered anyway. So you really don't have to worry so much. Much of the talk about security is just really allaying people's fears, but there is no real liability there in the sense that, you know, if it's insecure, you're
right.
Right. So unless you're in witness protection, you don't have to worry about people taking pictures of your credit card or your stuff.
Brings us back to your FBI listening into the callers.
Right. No, listen, dude, it's something I struggle with every day. You sure? There's another question. This is from an anonymous person, so we don't know if this is a bot or a real person, but it's specifically for you about setup for contactless payments. And this is where I take my nap.
What do merchants usually have to do to set up contactless payments? It really depends. So and I know we have many of our partners on here, there's nothing that a merchant has to do. They have to just ensure that they're running the latest, that they have a terminal that accepts contactless payments. And if they have and software on that terminal that is on a current version. And if they're using some sort of software, if they're using Cardknox software, some of our middleware or anything like that, just to make sure, again, that they're on a current version that supports it. The merchant, other than that, the merchant doesn't really have to do much. If any of our partners that are on here, or if we have merchants, there's a lot of people here that are on here, again, feel free to reach out to us if you want to confirm that, if you're a current merchant. But again, if you're a sales agent,
but in short,
going into a merchant, there's not really much that the merchant's going to have to do.
But I think going back to what James was saying before, just about, I mean, there's an abbreviation, TIS, keep it simple, right? Honestly, ensuring that you're on the latest version, it really should be pretty much all that you need, as long as your provider is a good provider. Right, James, anything to add on that?
You're talking from a sales perspective. I'm talking from a technical perspective.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I think
they don't pay me to do sales.
You sure? Listen, I'm over here. You're over here. We get that, man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with both of you. I mean, yeah, it's it's not much that they have to do. I think that's the key thing, is it is more of a technical thing. And so, that's why for a merchant, they need to be with a company they can trust to keep them up to date on technology. And if they're not currently with such a company, then that's an ideal opportunity to steal them.
Yep.
So,
James, you got another question. All right. So it's James 2, Yeshua 2, Mark 0.
If you try
Who's keeping score?
If you try contactless conversation and the merchant turns out to have contactless, how would you proceed with the sale? Great question. So, it's funny. The same thing happened with EMV, and you get to this tipping point where it starts to not be worth it to do this pitch. We're definitely not there yet, but the idea here is, are you going to end up looking kind of stupid when you're like, can I use my phone to make a payment? And they're like, yes, actually not though. It's not as bad as it sounds, because again,
Can I interject here, James? Why don't you just try making a payment first with your phone and see what happens?
well, you could, and I have, where I have used that is I have used that where I'm already like planning to spend money anyway, right? Like I'm actually going to buy pizza or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I want to pay with my Apple Pay. And then if they're like, well, we don't accept that. I'm like, really? Well, I actually am. Let me tell you what I do, But if I'm actually out prospecting, I actually like the little back and forth. So I'm using the contactless almost as small talk. And then when you say to them like, okay, so, can I make a payment on my, use my phone right now? And they're like, yes. And you're like, great. So glad to hear that. Now, let me tell you why I stopped by. And you just pivot and you go on to the other thing, savings, new POS system, whatever the other thing is that you can pitch. So you definitely need to have a backup. Otherwise you're going to look kind of stupid, but you just go with the flow. That's classic sales 101, right? It's like, hey, oh yeah, we've been set up for contactless for 6 months. Well, that's great. That's so good to hear. Now let me tell you why I really stopped by today. So I noticed you don't have a point of sale system in here. Now, have you seen the new, whatever? So, you're in sales. You just talk, you pivot. So
that's awesome. James, and really, you're the quintessential sales expert, and you definitely personified that today. It looks like I actually did get a pity question. It looks like I got a pity question. So at least someone feels bad for me. They want to know what a guinea pig is. I don't want to offend any PETA members or enthusiasts, but in short, guinea pigs are what have been used for testing. So yes, my wife is my quintessential, or our quintessential guinea pig. Are there any other questions? Yeah, you sure don't go there. Just drop it like a hot potato, man.
I must be a technical guy. Everybody else figured that out.
Yeah, just dude, that was a question, man. I got a question. All right. Are there any other questions? And I know, James, do you want to tell us just from an availability standpoint, if someone wants to find you, leverage your resources, use you for training, use you for sales techniques, and really just take advantage of your wealth of wisdom, where do we find you?
Oh my, anywhere. I guess probably the best place is go to ccsalespro.com. But if you look me up on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are engaging in social media, I will be there to help you.
Are you on, quick question, this is kind of important. Are you on MySpace or no?
You know what? MySpace is off my list, and I have not jumped into TikTok yet. So if you're all about TikTok, I have not figured out how to make merchant services tips last, 10 seconds you get, or 15? So I'm still working on that, but anywhere else you want to go, I'm there. So.
I got you, because I'm Tom from MySpace, okay? that joke really dates me. But all right, so your website is ccsalespro.com, correct?
Yep.
And pretty much any other handle, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, etc. But if you're looking for Tom from MySpace, then you're going to get in trouble. And it looks like we have a comment. James, like I mentioned, our teams have really enjoyed working with you. We have really 200 or so active outside agents, and
Sure.
I know the feedback I've gotten. People love you. So
I'm glad I can be a help.
Michael.
That's why I do.
Yeah. So just reading one of these comments, your videos on YouTube were a big help to me when I first started about 7 years ago, and I've recommended you many times. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the recommendations. Appreciate it.
And if you want to find us, you can find us at cardknox.com. And if you want to find me, I'm in witness protection. So, all right, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Although James is still getting a lot more love, so you guys can connect with him offline. James, any final parting shots?
The last thing I would just say is, it's funny because I always end up doing these specialty events where we talk about contactless or whatever, whatever the topic is. And, at the end of the day, it's work and it's skill. And so I would just challenge everybody out there to audit yourself right now. You're coming out of COVID-19. Some of you are still in lockdown. Most of you are not. It's very easy, I think, to slip into a survival mode and, not taking action. And so audit yourself. Here's a big opportunity. We just gave you an opportunity, right? This is something you could go work on right now. What is stopping you from doing that? Are you not working as hard as you should be working? Are your sales skills not up to par? You heard me presenting, here's how I would sell it. And were you thinking, wow, I need to read some sales books. It's work and skill. That's it. You have two variables. That's all you have to worry about. It's contacts and closing percentage. So if you're in sales and you want to be successful and you're not successful, it's because you're lazy or you don't know how to sell. That's it. So
I'm probably both, I truly, seriously. And your 4 points before, James, is something that I think we're going to definitely be promoting the heck out of. I think those were very important. It's, like you said, it's another tool in your arsenal, and getting back in this post-COVID-19 era. Hopefully it's post, right?
yes.
Is definitely, this is one way to really
Cool.
knock the ball out of the park.
This is time to just take action, right? So now you got contactless. There's plenty of things out there. It's a big world. There's lots of opportunity. So my advice to everybody is let's go, take action, get the success that you want. Let's do it.
Make payments awesome. Yeshua, any parting shots that you have for me, for James?
Don't be a guinea pig.
I'm sorry?
Don't be a guinea pig.
Don't be a guinea pig. I gotcha. All right. So I'm going to be signing off on behalf of James from CC Sales Pro, true expert and consummate professional. Yeshua, our director of technology, whose technology somewhat failed him. Sorry, dude, that was just a quick barb. And Mark Paley here, the VP of Sales at Cardknox, making payments awesome. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. And with that, peace out.
Thanks, guys.